Hi, everybody. My name is Richard Burns, and this is the Broken Responder Podcast. Welcome to episode 2. Let's kind of get into this. So hopefully you guys have kind of watched the introduction video. You watched episode 1, and kind of have an understanding of where it is that I'm coming from. We're going to, I guess, kind of get into some of the PTSD stuff. We're going to talk about some of the deep, dirty thoughts, the stuff that you don't think that you can ever, I guess, sink to and think of. But before we kind of get into it, sorry I couldn't get the video done on Sunday like I normally do. I kind of had a long weekend, some pre-birthday celebrations for the missus. We saw Billy Currington in concert up in Colorado Springs. Man, Billy Currington puts on a great show. Dude sounds just like just like he does on the radio. The Eli Young band, though, on the other hand, man, that those guys are a recording studio band. Let's just say that. But overall, it's kind of good. And I'm excited a little bit for next weekend because Chicago's coming to Colorado Springs. Man, big band, orchestra, 70s, 80s music, the stuff that I grew up on. I'm super excited for that concert next weekend. I probably won't have a voice the next week because I'm going to be singing my ass off at that entire concert because I pretty much know every one of their songs. So let's kind of get into it. PTSD brain. I forgot a couple things when we started talking about some of the things that happened throughout my time. Shortly, I think we got to June of 2024, basically, but I need to go back a couple weeks in there to the day 1, May 8th of 2024, when I went out on injury leave. Excuse me. And I received a text from a coworker. And that coworker was asking me if I was on injury leave. I'm not a fan of that coworker. I didn't respond because it just wasn't worth my time. I'm not a fan of that person. And when I didn't answer, that person took it upon himself. That officer took that upon themselves to track my wife down at her place of employment and ask her if she would talk to me to see if I would be willing to trade shifts with that officer, because it sounded like I was going to be gone for a very long time, and if they could have my day shift, that would be even better for them. I didn't entertain it. I'm not a fan of that person, again, like I said, so I didn't call him back. Or text or anything else like that. Then, a couple weeks after that, another coworker called me and asked, if I would be interested in giving up my vacation pick. And that vacation pick, our department bids by seniority. I wasn't necessarily high up enough on the totem pole to always get what I wanted, but for the last, few years that I was there, I was high enough up on the totem pole that I could pretty much take Christmas and New Year's off and not really have to worry about it. And that was my vacation pick, was for Christmas and New Year's. And that officer said that he also heard that I may be gone for a significant amount of time and was wondering if I would be willing to give up my vacation pick so he and his significant other, who also worked at the department, could have that same time off together. And I think FU was about the most, I guess, best response that I could give. And not entertaining that. I think I was even kind of a little rude about it because it kind of hurt my feelings, I mean, I'm literally dealing with some of the crappiest stuff I've ever dealt with in my life, and your first intuition is, hey, can I have your day shift spot, or would you give up your vacation pick for me? Wasn't very impressive, and I'm sorry, I got a little bit of dry throat. But as we progress into June of 2024, I'm still having a rough time. Um, since the May 8th when I went in and I had to go check myself in for a psych eval, basically, it was rough. It was really rough in there. Like I said, June, talked about, the stuff that recording a video for my wife and boys, trying to explain where I was at and why it was I was doing what I was going to do. And we kind of keep moving forward. After my wife came home and surprised me that day. So as we progress through the timeline, excuse me, we end up, I think I actually had to look at my phone because I kept everything in my phone because I started having kind of some memory issues initially in the beginning also. So I went in May 8th of 2024 was when I went in that first day for my workman's comp deal to end up being off on injury leave for mental health issues. It's now July 18th is the final time I get in to see the psychiatrist. And this is the psychiatrist through workman's comp. And let's talk about how wonderful workman's comp is. And I think I kind of hit on that point where, they had, were going to recommend me to a shrink basically through workman's comp. And at that time, the doctor that was supposed to have previously called me on 2023, I'll tell you a funny story, because I never heard from that doctor or his office or anything else. So as we get to, end of June 2024, I get a call from that original doctor from November of 2023, and is wanting to know if he can get me in his schedule. And I said, well, I had a call in last year, and nobody returned that call or message that I left the few times. But I have a schedule with another doctor that Workman's Comp set me up with. Maybe if you can beat his date, I might be able to see what we can do. But July 18th is the soonest he can get me in. And this is, still a few weeks, maybe a month out from that July 18th deal. And then they decide that they can't get me in any sooner, so they bid their farewell, and I wait for my July 18th appointment. By this time, I'm a mess. I am an absolute just time bomb of a mess. I'm going through the worst emotional roller coaster of my life. I am down, and I'm down a lot. And it's, you kind of initially have a little bit of peak and then a valley and then a little bit of a peak and then a little bit of a valley. By this time, my peaks are very few far in between where I'm, I guess feeling happy, any kind of dopamine, anything like that. And so I am just having a rough time. So by the time that July 18th comes around, I am a mess when I am talking to the shrink. And initially, it was kind of hard to talk to him. And the reason for that is, you kind of have those initial judgment deals about people. And I guess when you're in that career field, you kind of learn to read people really fast. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. But after being in law enforcement for over 16 years of my adult life, I've learned how to read people really fast. I can also kind of sense what kind of person you are just by the handshake that you give me. And like I said, I'm sure there are other first responders out there that have been doing it for any amount of time, significantly. They probably feel the same way. You can read people pretty quick by the way that they talk to you or interact with you, the way they shake your hand. Like I said, you kind of get feelings about people. And initially, I was not happy with the shrink. I kind of felt like there was a little bit of judgmental actions on the doctor's behalf. I don't think that there was initially what felt like him actually, or the doctor, excuse me, trying to get to know me. And I was a little hurt and I was a little taken back by that initially. But over like the next few visits, I think the doctor really kind of finally saw where I was at. And this just isn't some, I'm not making this up. And I don't necessarily maybe think that he was thinking that. I don't know what kind of patients he sees, if he sees other first responders or just the regular public. But I wasn't happy with the doctor initially, to the point where I was like, man, if this doesn't get better, I'm going to ask for a new doctor. And then we started medications. I can't remember which one was the one I was first on without having to pull out my giant stack of paperwork, but I know we did Zoloft, and then there was another basically kind of similar to Zoloft in there. Once Zoloft kind of got into my system, I had fewer, my peak days were kind of coming a little bit closer together, but they were still distant, and they were still a little ways out there. And so as you work through that, and you kind of get the medication, you kind of, I guess, see how it interacts with your body. The first thing that I found out is that I lived in the bathroom. I didn't want to kill myself, but I probably had nothing left by the time I got through living in there for 6 to 8 hours. It was not fun. Sure, you don't want to kill yourself, but you're not going to have anything left in you because you're going to be so dehydrated from like, I don't think I have anything left. And then you're back in for like around 10, 12, 15 in the bathroom. And it's absolutely miserable. So, by this time we're kind of like a month, spaced out basically to kind of give it a couple weeks to see how the meds go. Actually, I think it was like 2 weeks kind of initially at first, see how you're feeling. And initially I was like, man, maybe it's something I'm eating. And then when I finally start taking a look at side effects on these medications, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not eating anything crazy. Excuse me. But, this is not good. I hate this. So I tell the doctor what's going on. He's like, well, let's try a different one. We try the second one, and kind of same thing. It's like in that same family of like Zoloft, which was an antidepressant. And same thing, man. I mean, you're in the bathroom. And it's kind of, the whole goal is to try to get you, maybe back to work. Eventually, try to see what they can do to get you healthier. And as this is, starting to go like a month and a half in, I am starting to, how am I supposed to go back to work and do something when, I'm happy-ish, but I'm living in the bathroom for half to 3/4 of the business day. So eventually we kind of start to swap it, try a couple different medications, see how long this goes. And I'm getting a little bit ahead on the medications, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to kind of back up a little bit. So as we, try these different medications, the side effects are still there. I'm also not doing very well because I don't want to go out of the house. I don't want to leave. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to interact with anybody. There are certain people, certain types of people I don't want to see because that takes me back and I have a flashback. And if you're not familiar with a flashback, that's basically taking you right back to your incident. Yeah. Fuck me, huh? How does that make a person feel? You're paranoid. You're scared to death to go outside. Seriously? I'm a 43-year-old man, and I don't want to leave my own house. Yeah. What do you do? Now, thankfully, for my sake, I am not an alcoholic. I've never been an alcoholic. the way that I do alcohol is, man, I could have a beer today, or I could have a drink. Let's just say that. I could have a drink today, and I could go 6 months without even worrying about have to have another one. I can go longer than that. And I don't know, well, I do know why, and we'll get into that. I'm not a big fan of alcohol. I've had a few coworkers, one recently that passed away from alcoholism, and man, I don't know, again, like all the stuff that guy went through, but I know this career broke him. It broke him, it broke his family, and he lived in a bottle. And watching him, from a dude that I knew and respected, to see what he went out in the end as an alcoholic, and some of the most gut-wrenching pain I would ever think a person could experience, that was enough for me. On top of the fact that a couple years prior, my mom, as a woman in her late 50s, early 60s, has a mental health breakdown because she's also what I would consider to be a first responder. She was an ER nurse in Central California, where she lived after, my parents divorced when I was in like 6th grade, and she moved out there. I stayed with my dad, and my little brother and sister went and lived with her. And there's so many things I think that my mom was a broken person. And I think the crazy thing about that was that my mom wasn't an alcoholic her entire life. It was at the very end. And I watched my mom go from a person who I loved dearly to a woman that I hated, like despised. And my mom got depression, and it was really bad, to the point that I actually took some time off, and I went out and I moved my mom to Colorado to live in my basement rent-free to help get her back on her feet. And to have the alcoholism in my house was angering. I mean, I was so ticked off at her. But then on top of it, I saw the other side of alcoholism. I saw my mom hid alcohol. I literally would search my own home for alcohol because of my mom. And don't get me wrong, at the time, I had a pretty sweet alcohol collection. It happens. I get bottles for, my birthday, for, Christmas work parties. We would exchange bottles of booze. Some of those bottles that I got over that time were, some pretty cool bottles of booze. Ranging anywhere from $40 to a bottle I had that's, I think is $350. Well, that was later. But it got to the point where my mom started plowing through the alcohol that I had, in my own home. And I got mad. I was like, you're not going to drink my booze. If I'm not going to drink my booze, you're definitely not going to drink my booze to support your alcoholism. And so we, there's a couple bottles specifically I hid, and everything else I dumped out so she couldn't have it. And then she would sneak it in the house. Well, as it would come to it, in January of 2020, well, actually February of 2020, I would be driving home less than a mile from my house and watch the sheriff's office arrest my mother on my way home from work. Because she got arrested for a DUI. And she was on her way to be an ER nurse here in the city. And for me, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'd caught her once trying to leave for work. I don't know what happened. Other than at the end, like, she was just a broken person. But it started to kind of affect me. Because my mom would get suicidal, but I think her rants and suicidal ideations, and I'm not for sure if you all are familiar with it. And like I said, I'm not a doctor or a licensed therapist, but here's from my understanding of it. My mom would tell people about her suicidal ideas. And most of the times when folks do that, from my understanding, is basically that's their last line of defense. Like, they are begging for help. And they will do that. And I don't think that that's something that we should ever discount if someone starts saying stuff like that to you. Now, don't get me wrong. As a first responder, as somebody who's also been in the military, between the Navy and the Marine Corps, since I left high school, I have always had some type of job working for the government, whether it be federally in the military with, like I said, the Marine Corps or the Navy, or as a law enforcement officer. There is a very dark, twisted, sick sense of humor that we have as law enforcement. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that I haven't joked about suicide with my peers, or that we haven't joked with each other about it. That being said, it's totally different than what somebody were to say, in my opinion. But there's also, I guess, even when you do joke about it, pay attention to it. Because sometimes people will leak information out in stuff like that, interactions. So my mom, gets arrested. And then a few times after that, she makes statements. I end up calling the sheriff's office to have them to respond to my residence, because my mom is making these statements. And no matter what I can do as her oldest son, I cannot convince my mother to get help. Whatever it is, the relationship between her and I, there is not that connection. And no matter how much she begs for help and I try to give it to her, she does not respond well to me trying to help her. So she goes through this a few times, and the last time that it happened, I come home and she's got she's trying to cook something in the pressure cooker, and had I not have got home anytime sooner, she probably would have set off like a homemade you-know-what in the house, because that pressure cooker was not sealed correctly, and it was starting to pick up steam. So I intervene, and she basically starts, again, making suicidal statements to me. I contact the sheriff's office, again, have them come out here. By this time, I know everybody that's coming to my house, because it's starting to happen so frequently. And now I have fire trucks and sheriff's office vehicles in front of my residence. It's great, especially when everybody in the neighborhood knows what I do for a living. So my mom eventually, is telling these other first responders that I'm a liar and that she never made these statements, and that I am using my official position as a police officer to get her in trouble. And that was the moment that something flipped in me with my mother, because eventually she came clean and she told them that she had made those statements and went with them. But even as an ER nurse, my mom went in. And she wasn't there maybe for 30 minutes, and she was already on her way back home. Somebody was bringing her out to our house. And the state of Colorado has it in the mental health statutes, basically that if a person is intoxicated, whether it be under the influence of alcohol or drugs, you can't do anything to them. They don't count as being suicidal because they're under the influence. You really want to know what somebody's thinking? Get them drunk and ask them how they really are. And try to hold on for 8 seconds. Because it's going to be a ride. And for some odd reason, we discount people when they're drunk or when they're under the influence of drugs. And I'll be most honest with you, that's probably about the best time you are going to get the most honest conversation out of that person. And we discount it and say they have to be sober before you can have that conversation. And if they're not sober, then maybe they are truly having some type of mental health breakdown. So mom comes home, and at that point I told her she had a week and she needed to leave my residence. So, we're kind of in the beginnings of COVID and everything else with that nonsense that it was. And she leaves. I don't hear from her. Actually, I hear from her July of 2020 for my birthday. Again in July of 2021 for my birthday. We just don't talk. But my wife thankfully kept up conversations with her. Fast forward to November of 2021, my mom's living in California, back at home, living with our stepdad, who divorced her and then let her back in, trying to help her. She's living out there. She's also got arrested for a couple more DUIs, wrecked a few vehicles, showed up drunk at my brother's house, left, came back. The front of her Tahoe is like completely smashed, missing a mirror. She falls out of the car. My brother calls the police. They come and arrest her and tow the vehicle. To get to the point of this, alcoholism ended up killing my mom December 8th of 2021. I hadn't heard from her in forever. But she drank herself to death. Yeah. So, and she was mean. God, she was fucking mean as an alcoholic. I mean, things that you would never think your own mother would say to you. Check that box. Because she said some pretty dirty shit to us. So I didn't drink during my depressive experience because I didn't want to end up like that. So we're working on medications. And as we start to move forward, some of these medications are working. But I'm also having issues with my sleep. And my sleep cycles are not good. I am dreaming vividly, reliving my incidents when I'm sleeping, and I do everything possible to avoid doing that. I don't want to relive my incidents. I can't even leave the house. But I'm still haunted in my own mind. And then on top of it, I have internal monologue telling me that I should just not wake up tomorrow. Life would be better off without me tomorrow. I'm also having kind of weird Q&A questions inside my head. 75 miles an hour driving up the interstate. Let's take it back. I'm guilty of speeding. I'm normally 7-ish over. Sometimes 10. cruising along on the interstate at 85 miles an hour and wondering if I just jerked the fucking wheel to the left, how quick do you think that's going to be? It's crashing into the middle of the concrete pole in the bridge. Yeah, that's going on inside my head. I'm wishing I don't wake up tomorrow. And it's absolutely brutal. And if my sleep only brings that on, with not only am I living with what's going on inside my head, I also have to dream about it when my eyes are closed. What kind of fun is that? So I would begin to not sleep. I would go for 24 hours, 48 hours, sometimes 72 hours. And when I would finally crash, because my body is exhausted, I would finally get just a glimpse of hope because I would get restful sleep. And then it would start all over. 24, 48, 72 hours. Crash. Back up. Doing it again. Sorry. And it's miserable having to deal with that. Meanwhile, I'm still in therapy. I'm kind of making progress. But I'm not truly learning to open up. Because I'm still learning to try to find emotional intelligence that I've never had. So as this goes along, it's a miserable ride. And it's the worst emotional, I guess you kind of, I guess in law enforcement or anything else, equate it to the domestic violence cycle of sleep. You know, you have the little spats, you start getting into arguments, maybe things get physical. All that stuff is going on inside your head. And then you get to that honeymoon phase, because that's at the end of your crash. And you get that great sleep. And you wake up and you're like, yes, it's going to be a great day. And then by that evening, well, you're not tired. You don't want to go to sleep. Because everything is still there in your head. And it's just living rent-free. 24/7, 365. So finally, I'm able to get on a combination of drugs to, 1, knock me out, but 2, help me stay asleep. But that's taken a while to get to that. Meanwhile, my best friend from the Navy, Billy, who... Man, I'm trying to get a better picture of him. And let me see. Oh, man, I'm going to cry showing you guys these photos. Let me get to the... Actually... Give me just a second. I'm sorry. I just got this photo the other day. There we go. Oh, and I'm gonna cry like a girl. That dude was my brother. Man, if you could ever have a soul brother with somebody, he was mine. We were connected. And during this, as I'm going through all of my depression, Billy starts calling me late at night. Because Billy's worried. He's starting to have some medical issues. He's about ready to retire. Actually, he had just got selected for Chief Petty Officer in the Navy. And for some of you folks who have never been in the Navy, or you have, you know the pride in Navy chiefs. Navy chief, Navy pride. And Billy had finally made chief. And he's happy. Man, he's happy. But Billy's got a different tone when we start talking. He's a little bit worried about his health. He's got some type of growth growing on his shoulder. It's getting bigger. It's not going away. The doctors don't know what's going on. And we kind of start having late night conversations. Because there's times he's up, he's in pain, and he can't sleep. And, well, let's face it, I may or may not have slept for the last 24 to 72 hours. So Billy and I start talking pretty much every night. And as we progress, we're starting to get into September of 2024. Also, at the same time, I am still getting placed off on injury leave through workman's comp. I'm kind of starting to get a little bit more restful sleep. I'm doing my EMDR therapy. And things are still just all over the place for me. So my life is just an absolute mess. Meanwhile, my core beliefs are getting tested. And I don't know if I can explain it any better, but it's the ideologies of who you are as a person. If you take everything away from you, it's those core values of who you are. And if those core values get broken or pushed to that limit, you will break. And it broke me. I thought my blue family would be there for me. I absolutely believed that. Now, I'm not here to bash law enforcement, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a retired cop myself. I know we're not all perfect. But one of my core beliefs was that when I was at my lowest, they would be there for me. Because that's what we preach in law enforcement. We are a blue family through and through. I will be there for you, for your family. We make these oaths. We say them at law enforcement funerals and other first responder funerals. That we're a family. That we lost one of our own. And our duty as protectors is to also look out for that family and our own. And I didn't feel that. Like I said, you need a Marty. You need a Wags. You need a Logan. And damn it, you need a Billy. Those were my core, along with my wife. I would randomly hear from a few people. And to this day, those random few people that I heard from, I still will go out of my way to say hi to them if I see them. But nobody else came. Nobody else texted. Nobody else called. I'm at my lowest. I think I'm the biggest, worthless, most god-awful piece of shit on this planet. Because the family I thought was supposed to be there for me wasn't. No phone calls. No texts. I'd take it back. I would hear from the chief occasionally, but it was mainly wanting to know what the progress was for my injury leave report. And at the time, that was about every 6 weeks or so. At that time. But that family wasn't there for me. And that truly hurt. Because that was one of my core values. That if we're a family, we're going to stick together. And I didn't feel that. I felt quite the opposite. Then as we get to it, at the time, I'm sitting on our union board. When I'm not there for a few months, I get a call from the union president, well, actually a text, wanting to know that if I'm going to give up my seat, I need to do it. Bro, I'm barely hanging on. And that's the first thing that you have to talk to me about? I think my wife explained it best to me. And I think I'll give her the credit for this one. Because she's a wise lady. She loves me still. That everybody down there is doing what they can do probably to just survive every day. And I think the issue is that they are probably struggling to just survive every day. So for that, I might give them a little bit of slack. But it still doesn't excuse the basic human decency of reaching out to somebody. I think that's what hurt the most and shook me the most. That core value. Because we said it all the time. We're a family. We're there for each other. Only to find out that that family isn't a family. We're more like friends. Was exactly how one of the administrators put it. And sometimes we need to get rid of a friend. And I felt like that friend that gotten rid of. So yeah, core belief blown up. I'm sorry, I kind of talk a little long-winded sometimes. But sometimes that's how my brain works. A lot. It takes me a while to explain a point because I will go from A all the way to Z just to get back to the point I was trying to make it H. Is how my brain works sometimes. So I think we're going to stop right there before I get into Billy. And we're probably about, like I said, August of 2024. A lot's happened in that time. I'm at the lowest point of my life. And it's only going to get crazier. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you again for all the comments. You guys kind of feed this for me to keep going. Because sometimes it's rough to talk about all of this. But we need to bring this out. We don't need to lose any more. So, With that, I thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys soon for episode 3.